Alright, so to start this lesson on slope, we're going to think about this like a jet that's taking off at any specific angle. And what we're told is that it rises 150 feet. For every 500 feet we travel horizontally. So what we can do is we can locate any 2 points. And if we move 500 feet in this direction, we know that the vertical change is 150. And we represent this as the slope. Five goes into this 3 times, 5 goes into this 10 times, and we can say that the slope of this line is 3/10. The formula to calculate slope is rise over run, change in y divided by change in x, or subtract your 2 y values, subtract your 2 x values, divide. Just keep in mind that those x values cannot be the same value. If we're looking here at this horizontal line, let's say I give this coordinate 1, 4, and I give this one 5, 4. If I use this equation, change in y values, 4 minus 4 over 5 minus 1, horizontal lines have a slope of 0. If I draw in this line, give that a coordinate of 7, 1, give this a coordinate of 7, 6. Vertical lines have what we call an undefined slope. Here we're asked to consider this line, which is in standard form, and we're told solve for y in terms for x. What that means is make this equation y equals something. So if I'm going to isolate y, I have to subtract ax from both sides. Then I have to divide by b. And remember, everything needs to get divided by b. So we're asked, well, what's the slope? Well, taking a look, we're familiar with slope-intercept form of a line. The slope is the coefficient on x. So in standard form, the slope can be found by taking negative a divided by b. That means coefficient on x divided by coefficient on y, and you have to take the opposite of it. So if it's positive, turn it negative. If it's negative, turn it positive. So a couple of examples. Calculate the slope. What I want to find is rise over run, change in y, divided by change in x. So the change in y values, I'll take 6 minus 4, divided by 5 minus negative 1. Please notice, 6 came first here, so 5 had to come first here. It's always minus, and then the exact value shown for 4. This is negative 1. This is negative 1. 6 minus 4, that's easy. 5 minus a negative 1, that's the same as plus a positive. and you always have to simplify. Next problem, determine the slope. Well, what did we say? Negative a over b. So coefficient on x is understood to be 1. Negative 1 over b, we have to include that negative sign, and there's also a 1 here. So I have to make b negative 1. So the slope on this one is positive 1. Let's do a few more where we find the slope. On this equation, a and b are not in the place that we're used to them being because it's mixed. So if you need to rewrite it, rewrite it. But a is always the coefficient on x, b is always the coefficient on y. So that's negative 3 over 1. So the slope here is negative 3. I can do the same thing here. The slope is negative a over b. Apologize that the bell rang. So that's going to be equal to negative 2 over 3. The slope here is 2/3. Before we start this section, we need to talk about the different ways that linear equations can be expressed. This is called standard form. What that means, x and y are on the same side of the equal sign. They have integral coefficients, meaning that there are no fractions going on here. And this term a must be positive. So if you end up with a negative number, you'll have to multiply everything through by negative 1 because this one must be positive. I'd write that down. Point-slope form of a line is very useful if you are told, find the equation of a line with this slope going through the point with this x and that y. Please keep in mind that when you're using point-slope form, the x sub 1 and y sub 1 are the coordinates. Y and x will actually stay y and x in the equation. Slope-intercept form is what you guys are most used to. Y equals mx plus b. M is your slope. In this case, b is your y-intercept. This lowercase b is different than this capital B. Lowercase b is the y-intercept. Capital B is the coefficient on y in standard form, but it is not the y-intercept. You need to understand parallel lines. Their slopes need to be equal. So if you look, slope of 3, these lines are parallel to each other. Parallel means that they never intersect. Perpendicular lines have slopes that are opposite reciprocals. So reciprocal of 3 is 1/3. The opposite of positive is negative. Y-intercepts don't matter. Here we're just looking at slopes, opposite reciprocals. Perpendicular lines intersect at 90 degrees. To get started, we're going to write the equation in standard form for the line that goes through these 2 points. First thing I need is a slope. Now, I know that m is negative a over b. And negative a over b is 1/3. And I remember that a is not allowed to be a negative value, so I can actually make b negative. So from here I can say, okay, well a is 1 and b is -3. From there, I can choose either point that I want as x and y to find that c value. And truthfully, it doesn't matter which. Oops, it shouldn't say 6, that should say C. So the equation is x minus 3y is equal to -18. The next one, I have a point and a slope, so I can start with point-slope form. I would say y minus 3 is equal to 2 times x minus 4. Now all I have to do is distribute that 2 and rearrange. I'll subtract 2 from both sides. Add 3 to both sides. But I remember this rule here, can't have a negative value, so what I'll do next is multiply everything in this whole equation by -1. And that will give me positive 2x minus y is equal to 5. Next example, I'm given a slope and a y-intercept, so I can use slope-intercept form. Y equals 1/2 x minus 4, and now I need to rearrange so that I'm in standard form. Subtract 1/2 from both sides. Now, I can't have a fraction or a negative right here. So what I can do is not only am I going to multiply everything through by a -1, but to clear that fraction, I'm going to multiply everything through by a -2. It's -2 times -1/2 is positive 1. Next one, they don't necessarily give me the information, but I can see it. If I'm parallel to this, that means that this has to be my slope. So really, I've got point-slope form right here. And again, I remember I'm not allowed to have this negative, so I'm going to multiply the whole thing by -1. Last one, we're looking for something perpendicular with the same y-intercept. For this one, it may actually be easier to rewrite this in slope-intercept form. Remember that your y-intercept is the value you get when x is 0. Perpendicular needs to be the opposite reciprocal. So my new slope is positive 1/2. So now if I'm going to write this in standard form, I might start in slope-intercept form and rearrange. Again, I've got this negative and a fraction, so I'll multiply by -2. I've also put this warning in your notes. You need to make sure that A, B, and C are integers. That means no fractions. No decimals. And A has to always be a positive value.